starting off, it's once again students' life in the pandemic. My name is Joe Biden, and folks, here's the deal. We're finding common ground in this pandemic, and starting off with introductions. Again, I'm from Region 5, Jean Gaetao, VP, and then we have the lovely Jen Galinato from Region 2, our MC. And we have our lovely Angelica Campos, our Vice President of Communications from Region 3. All right, starting off with a question. How is everyone doing today?
You can be 100% transparent with
Be
us
honest.
and
Be honest.
This safe is a safe space. We do have 4 walls, both literally in person and online. So anything that you say will be safe in this space amongst those who are here with us. So please feel free to share with us how you're feeling at this moment.
Yeah. So anyone in the chat, if you feel free to flood the chat, tell us, how are you feeling?
Yeah.
And
anyone in the crowd want to share? I'll bring the mic to you.
Or you can shout.
Preferably in the mic, because we do want to be mindful of those people, oh my God, that are online, and I'm struggling. Thank you.
Hold, please.
I will give it off to Eeny, Meeny, Miny, Mo. I'm like, you're at the end. That's easy.
Great, now that you guys are our presenters. I feel like we got the cool crowd, so I'm good with that.
You can go ahead and pass it around, and we're here. Also, really quickly, just really quickly for those online, if you can drop how you are doing in the chat, that'd be great. We want to be, mindful of all of the folks here that are in person and online.
Hello. It's been a long day, but I'm excited for this one just because it's like superhero theme. So let's see where this goes. I'm pretty pumped.
Hello. I'll be honest, I'm a bit overwhelmed, but I'm also very excited. And I'm happy I was able to interact with a bunch of people from a bunch of different regions and schools today.
I don't know if one of you want to go, or you're fine. You're like, okay.
Hi, everyone. Honestly, I'm really tired, but I'm having a great time here today. I can't wait for dinner, even though we just had lunch. Okay, thank you.
Yay. Hello, I'm very tired. I want a nap, but I'm really excited for this because I know you guys worked really hard on it, so I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay. Maybe we can share.
yeah. How are we doing today? I'm doing good. A little bit tired. Could probably use a couple hours more sleep, but it's just inspired. It's meeting a lot of new people, and just being able to be immersed in this situation. We haven't had this in-person event in probably a year or so, 2 years.
2 years.
So we're just happy to be here. To be able to do it, to do the best we can, adapt to the situation, and present this wonderful presentation to you. How about you, Jen? How are you feeling?
Do you want the short, the long, or the Jen answer to that?
I want the truth and nothing but the truth.
And the holy truth. Honestly, it's been a really long day, and I think everyone here has pretty much already encapsulated that. I mean, for me, also, complete transparency, it's a little bit tiring. I mean, I'm on all the time, and don't get me wrong, love the engagement from each and every one of you, and I do appreciate it so much. It fuels me up, but whew, it's a lot going up there on the podium, and I will be honest, I get a little lightheaded up there sometimes. So if you're ever wondering what it's like on my end up there, it's a lot of shining bright lights that somewhat intimidate and frighten you. So if I have that deer in the headlights kind of look, just know it's because I'm partially being blinded and I'm really tired and wish I had a few hours of sleep and coffee. I haven't had coffee throughout this entire thing just yet, so I hope you all know. So I'll pass it off to Angie.
We'll get some Starbucks right after this.
Yeah, so that's what I'm hearing. Starbucks. If any of you online.
On me.
And that goes for all of you online too. I'm kidding. Drop your email in the chat, and Gian will buy everyone Starbucks. All right, moving on to the next slide.
Let's go over a bit.
Oh. All right, go for it. Go for it. There are a few people in the chat that actually might want to share. Some people are feeling good. I want to shout out Luis Angela. She said she's feeling good. Deborah, pretty good and excited. Generally, everyone's just really excited for this workshop. So we're going to get to it soon. We definitely wish you were here with us. I think for me, one of the things was I was really excited for this conference because it's been almost like 2 years. 2 years where all of the student leaders in California Community College system were unable to, come together and meet. But, even so, we were still able to kind of, bring everyone together, and we're going to do a better job in General Assembly. And hopefully more of you online and in person are going to be able to meet more and more people. I'll pass it off. Just again, I see so much excitement. So it's really good to see that energy. And we hope you really, really do enjoy this presentation. I'm going to pass it off back to you, Gian.
Alrighty, awesome. Let's keep this ball rolling. So start off with the definition of mental health. So in 2014, the WHO, World Health Organization, defined mental health as the following, and this is the quote: a state of well-being in which every individual realizes his or their own potential, can cope with the normal stresses of life, can work productively and fruitfully, and is able to make a contribution to his or their community. And since then, as we all know, this pandemic has really showed us that this definition could be as similar and can be as different to each and every single student, to one's own emotional and psychological well-being. And as students, this pandemic has really highlighted our challenges, our little victories, but it's really, we want to encapsulate what the student is really feeling. And it's big. It's more than just our classes. It's more than just one thing. It really is everything for us. Moving on. I'll pass it out to Jen and Andrew.
All right. So the dynamic duo is back together. If you've seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you can catch Bucky and Sam. So how has the COVID-19 pandemic impacted us? These times have been so unprecedented. I think a lot of the conversation around the pandemic has been, we haven't really had something, so a virus or, a pandemic that has affected us so much, where we have been unable to, communicate since at least, 1912. We hear a lot about the Spanish flu, and it's taken on a new, form. Because I feel like over time, many of us have, connected. We're all of us inside our lives with our friends, our family, our coworkers are super, super interconnected. We have so there's so much more to, our lives nowadays. We, again, like I said, are connected. So and our interactions with one another are in person, have been in person, and suddenly, that sense of community has been taken away from us. So a few things that this pandemic has kind of caused for many of our students, including myself, and maybe some of my co-presenters, including, collective stress, anxiety, grief. Many of our students have, lost members of their family, members of their community during this time. We've also seen definitely in the AAPI community escalation of fear and bigotry. Oh my God. Apologies, this is a lot heavy material, but we're really excited to present with you. So again, escalation of fear and bigotry, we've seen that taking form in anti-Asian hate. There's inequity in the livelihoods and experiences. So before we may have had, so many opportunities and resources such as, food that address food insecurity, housing insecurity, and a lot of that was ripped away from many of our homeless students, many of our foster youth. I'm a little anxious right now, and I'm gonna be real about that. Many of us were unable to shelter at home. Many of our students in our system are homeless. Many of our students face situations such as domestic abuse. I think I heard a story recently where one of my peers, they were unable to kind of stay at home because the situation was just so hard for them. They faced a lot of violence and situations that just weren't safe. I think the one thing that hasn't changed about the pandemic and was a little bit exacerbated was, having to juggle and deal with so many different things at once. We have family as students, we have families we got to take care of, friends, we want to foster relationships, work. Many people have had to take on more jobs to kind of meet that gap, to kind of meet their basic needs that have been exacerbated by this pandemic. So it's just super hard. And on top of that, we have to face now a distance learning environment. So now I'm going to pass it off to Jen to kind of talk about more of those impacts on us as students, us as human beings. Thank you, Jen.
So on your left-hand side, as you see on the slide here in front of you, we're going to talk a little about these impacts of the pandemic. A lot of the impacts that are here listed are both something that you can see and things that you don't exactly see. So, for example, the first few points that we see are things that are seeable, like physical and emotional stress and responses. One thing that I learned throughout the entirety of the time of being in the pandemic, one of my emotional responses is shutting down. I actually block people out, and I already have a workaholic tendency and personality. So when I am grieving, as Angelica said, my response is to shut everyone out and continue the work that I'm doing, because I don't want people to know that I'm suffering or grieving. And that's a pandemic in this pandemic, we've seen a lot of students do exactly that. I know I'm not the only one, and I've been saying it since really day one that there are 2.1 million students, and each and every one of us has a different emotional, physical stress response, as well as a response as a whole. Anger and irritability is one of those things. I know in some instances, some of us are quick to bite back. I know I'm one of those personalities that I'm like, you cross me, I'm going to snap back and say, excuse you, I'm going to put you in your place. And it's not always great. It's not always good, because when doing that, it causes a strain or stress in the relationships that I have worked on. I mean, for transparency and vulnerability, that's what happened with Angie and I. We are really close, and throughout this pandemic, oh my gosh, now I'm getting emotional too. We've worked on better communicating with each other and helping each other have better responses in these impacts. Changes in sleep or eating patterns. I mean, even here, so there have been a few people that have approached some of us and asked, hey, are you okay? And even those small little check-ins, they mean a lot. I'll admit, I'm the first one to admit I don't get enough sleep. I think all of us can admit that. And don't get me wrong, while this is a fun event, it's also really stressful too for some of us, because it's the first time, again, that we're meeting in person. So I think for a lot of us, we'll end up tossing and turning in anxiety because, oh my gosh, the pandemic, we're still in a pandemic. We're not entirely out of it yet. There's a multitude of variants. I hope there's some STEM majors in the room that can attest and speak to this, but there's still XYZ factors that are still going on that causes these changes or patterns, like other things too, such as brain fog or difficulty or concentration. I don't know if all of you noticed, but there are moments where I'm on that podium and I'm like, someone help, I'm blanking, help, call a friend. Can I dial 911 a friend, please? And it happens. But the worst part of it all, and this is something that I've also seen firsthand, is the worsening of chronic health problems and mental health conditions. So, oh no, hold with me, everyone, and bear with me as I get through this. But I saw a lot of my own family members struggle through this. I have a younger brother at home, and his mental health, it was an entire roller coaster throughout the entirety of this pandemic. And he was a high school student at the start of the pandemic. He was a junior, and his senior year, I remember one instance where he just broke down, and I'm just like, how can I help you as your older sister? How can I support you? It's my job to protect you from these impacts and these things. This pandemic shouldn't be hurting you, yet here it is. So when we think about all of these things, the unprecedented times and the impacts of what this pandemic has done to us, please let it be known that you're not the only one being impacted by this. It's happening to all of us too, whether you're a community college student or an adult. Please let it be known that you're not alone in all of this. We're all in this together, and as community college students, more now than ever, we need to find unity in our community as the community we're a part of. So please, I encourage each and every one of you to please look at that and do that. So let's move into the next bit. How do you find balance in your life? Let's be real here, and being 100% transparent, who actually has a balance in their life? I heard some laughs in the room, and I'm glad for the laughs. I also heard my colleagues too. Let's look and see what the chat has to say too.
No one has said anything about, here, can I have the mic? So pretty much for this part, I want to see what the chat has to say about finding balance in your life. What are an example of, people already jump into it. I stay busy. That definitely is, I feel like, something that, a lot of people do sometimes to kind of compartmentalize. I don't want to speak for anyone in the chat, but I felt that. We even have, people who are student parents. They're, dealing with so much else in their personal lives. So it sometimes does feel like, finding time is impossible. Take the weekends off. I see you, Matthew. Me time, me time, self-care. And also, Deborah, I see you're talking about, struggling to stop, working or studying. I feel like sometimes it's so much easier to just throw yourself into work instead of, again, take time, like what Matthew said, me time, that self-care time. So I'll pass it off back to my co-presenter, Jen.
Thank you for that, for everyone who's in the chat, actively engaging with us. And thank you for those of you who are here in person with us, also for participating as well. Again, I'd like to state that for this session, we have a four walls rule, which is anything that you say will be kept here with us, and it stays with us. I want to kind of refer to it as what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas quote, but that's probably not the best reference. So again, in this session, in this space, four walls, everything will be kept with us as you share it with us, and we thank you for that, and we do appreciate you because this is no easy topic. So let's get into the next part. And this is a part to kind of cheer us all up. But there is a meaning behind all this. So for those of you who are Marvel fans, I hope you get the reference because I kind of alluded to this earlier. If you didn't, absolutely fine. We won't get upset. So hopefully it will play. Can people hear it?
And for everyone in the room, you can pretend. Imagine. I'm kidding.
Gian, I don't know if they can hear it. I don't think they can hear it. I can't hear it. Hold, please, as we try to figure out technical difficulties. Thank you.
They cannot hear it in the chat. They can't hear it on Zoom. Should we summarize it? We gotta. Where's the mic? So another thing we learned about the pandemic, and we're learning right now, is patience. So Jen, I don't know if you want to just summarize the scene since we are unable to play it. Go for it.
Yeah, so the reason why we picked this, not just because of the Marvel reference on your left, but also it's checking up on each other after. Actually, at a portion towards the end of the tidbit, there is a bit where Sam and Steve, aka Captain America, we have our own Captain America here. I don't know if he introduced himself. They actually have a moment where they're just kind of talking about themselves and checking in with each other. There's actually a specific portion where Steve asks Sam what he does and where he resides at. And Sam responds and actually states his conditions, how he is living at that time, and then states 2 seconds later, I sleep on the floor. And then Steve kind of has a response going, wait, what? Why would you sleep on the floor? Right? The reason why we bring this up is because it goes hand in hand with our next part, coping during a difficult time. And I will actually pass it off to Angie, or in my case, Bucky, to me, and we'll be piggybacking off of how to cope during this time. And the first part is creating a structure, keeping a regular routine. You'll notice that in that video, Sam's routine is to actually go and exercise. And with that, it helps him stay on track because I believe also, correct me if I'm wrong, Angie, it was Sam...
To be realistic, I have not seen Captain America in this particular film in a few months. Marvel fan here. So I'm just going to continue on. So moving on to how to cope during a difficult time. So first off, create structure by keeping a regular routine. I'm gonna be real. I struggle to do this. This is something I'm learning to do. I think a lot of the times for me, I'm a yes person. I feel like a lot of the time I'm a yes person. I don't know how to say no to people, especially like as a student leader. And in the positions I've served in, even now in the SSCCC, like I so much want to like help every single person that asks me to do a project for them, to help them. But I sometimes have to think about what I have to do on a daily basis to kind of, I don't know how to explain that part, to like keep on myself on a routine. Jen, do you want to explain more?
I kind of get where you're going with
setting boundaries. I think that's part of like creating a structure too. Jen, do you want to talk a little bit more about keeping a regular routine?
Yes. So this is also something that I've also kind of had struggle with learning and learned to kind of readjust when we first went down at the height of the pandemic in March of 2020. So I will admit I've faced a multitude of panic and anxiety attacks. There was one really big one that I had in high school where I actually just passed out in the middle of the quad area, and we had to call an ambulance and everything. And I also was asked to go to therapy for a point in time because it was just a really traumatic time for me when I passed out from anxiety and panic. One thing I learned was a meditation and facial massage technique, which I love because I love skincare. It's part of my regular routine, at least that I try on a Sunday. Probably not going to happen this Sunday. And also some deep breathing exercises. I learned the 1, 2, 3 method, which is where 1, you breathe in, 2, you breathe out, 3, and then 3, you breathe back in. And then it repeats the cycle over and over again. It probably doesn't make sense right now, but I promise you doing it when you're in times of anxiety, it really helps. Now, I would also like to state for the record, I am by no means a licensed therapist. I am just stating what works best for me, and that may not be applicable to everybody. So I'm here sharing these with you, so I hope maybe you'll take them away and it'll help you. Other forms of exercise too, I literally run away from my problems. That's literally both a literal and figurative thing in a way. I will probably wake up at an ungodly hour when I'm super stressed and start running away from my problems when I'm super stressed. And that's not me saying I give up or anything. It's just also helping me cope because at the height of this pandemic, I can tell you I did a lot of stress running, and I can probably tell you how many times I've fallen off my treadmill because of how stressed I was from running from my problems. And that's a lot to ask of a 20-something-year-old who doesn't exactly know what she's doing when she's got 40 billion other things to deal with. And that's also something that Angie and I talk about frequently too. And it ties into our next point, is being connected and engaging in our creative activities. So take it away.
Canva. One word, Canva. No, I'm kidding. I'm going to give an example. I think a group of my friends, including Rad2, Jen Galanato, we would in the middle of the pandemic, we all live in different parts of California. Let's be real. We would hop on Zoom and do pretend make little music videos on Canva, the videos. We would showcase them to all of our little friend group. So that's creative. We had to throw together a bunch of different little clips. That's just one example. I know a lot of people I have talked to have started to create TikToks. At the start of the pandemic, you started to see more people accessing social media, accessing those different kinds of creative outlets, whether it's arts and crafts, Canva, graphic design, TikTok if you're into that kind of thing. I'm trying to think of what else. Those are just a few examples for sure.
Netflix is never bad.
That part. I don't know if it's creative though. I don't know. Moving on to focus on what you control. I think Jen, you are a better example of this. But I think sometimes we worry a lot. And and when I say we, it's just a general we. I don't want to speak for anyone here, but sometimes when you're having a difficult time, you're going through an immense amount of stress. You kind of fixate on those aspects that you can't control. Maybe how someone interacts with you, how someone said one little word. You can't always, how you say, fixate on those things, because sometimes you're gonna stress yourself out. You are gonna get overwhelmed thinking about how everyone else kind of engages or communicates with you or engages with you. Jen, I don't know if you want to segue into how you can focus on what you can control.
Yes, absolutely. And focusing on what you control also goes into this really interesting point that we have here, offering yourselves and others grace. When you are in a situation there, and I can speak from my own experiences, there are times where I feel like I need to be the one in control. But there are things that are simply out of my control, like college applications, for example. I didn't get into UC Davis. I'll just be real with that from last term. And I remember being so angry and fixated on, nitpicking at what I could and couldn't do, right? I was like, I should have gotten an A in this class. I should have fought for my grade, or I should have done better on this test, X, Y, Z factors. Those are factors that were in my control, right? I can study for a test. I can take the test. But the factors that are out of my control are the classroom environment, the questions that will be on there. Although, it kind of sounds a little contradictory, but there are some questions, like as students, we do get those surprise questions and we're like, what do we do? So those are other things. And then also sometimes some grading things, a few things here and there. Sometimes they can get really technical, sometimes not so really, but we do also have our student 9+1, right? So also let it be known that too. So that's probably not the best example, but it's a good example that I can think of when I can focus on what's in my control and what's not. And an even better example, what I can control, is the 2016 elections. I remember being super anxious and getting so upset when my candidate of choice did not end up winning. I actually cried. I actually stress baked and cried as I was stress baking. And what I could focus and control at the time was how much flour I was putting into my KitchenMaid mixer as I was screaming and yelling at my TV with tears streaming down my face. And again, it goes into the next point. And the next point we have here is offering yourself and others grace. And that is heart holding versus holding your heart. This is something that some of my colleagues in the SSCCC have heard a lot, and I even said it earlier. And I remember at one point someone asking me, what is heart holding? And how does that differentiate from holding your heart? Let me define those two really quickly. Holding your heart means you're putting your cards on the table out of nervousness. So if anyone plays poker or plays any card games, you put your cards out if to create a fake hate that you're pretty confident in the winning deck that you have, even though you're kind of nervous. I'm hoping I'm explaining that right for those of you who are card players and are in person and online. Versus heart holding. Heart holding, I would like to say I am not the creator of this term. There have been different variations of it, but this is the way I've been going about it. And heart holding, and I implore each and every one of you to do this, is holding someone's heart when things get tough and when things get really hard. And I get emotional a lot of times explaining it. And again, when I do explain it, I actually have to feel like I hold my chest when I do that, because it's an action that you do for people without having actually asked to. I heart hold for Angie all the time. I heart hold for Gian all the time. I heart hold for all of you, even though you probably don't know me that well. But things are tough, and holding your own heart can only be so much. It's difficult and it's stressful when you've got 40 billion XYZ other things to do on your mind, and taking care of you is like really tough, especially in times of grief. And more now than ever during this pandemic, we do need to do a lot more heart holding for each other, and that is giving yourselves grace, but also supporting one another. I mean, I have such a wonderful team here to present this with, and I'm so glad that I get to do that. And I know, without them having to even tell me, and I know that we all heart hold for each other without even having said. So when I get emotional, Angie's the first one that's gonna have a response saying, Jen, are you okay? And I'll be like, yeah, or Jean's gonna probably crack some joke about Captain America that's gonna make me laugh. No, that's really what it is. That's how they heart hold for me. And I encourage each and every one of you to do exactly that too. So with Angie, I hope you can I hope that wasn't too much, because my heart. So I'll leave the next points to you.
I was just gonna say, that's America's VP, the PG version. No, okay. So this part, I do see a lot of movement in the chat. Move your body, move around. Okay, that's embarrassing. Just kidding. No, it's super important to move, just move, walk. I definitely saw a few people talk about getting out for a walk around campus, get that blood flowing, exactly, Heather. So definitely it's super, super hard. Everyone in the room, everyone at home, if you can, I know we can't see you right now, but can you just shake it all out. Shake it. Stretch.
Oh my God, Gian is so tall.
Because I know a lot of us may have been sitting around for the last hour and a half, the last few hours, the last day. It's just good to move around. But I also want to recognize too that that's not possible for everyone all the time. Many of us are, super busy, super busy, super, focused on what we have to get done. But it is super important, again, for you to just, if you can't go outside often, and, some people are still concerned about going to parks, going to the beach, because there might be so many people around you, and, social distancing sometimes for some of us is difficult wherever we, depending on where we live. So just indoors, if you can do stretches, that's great. Just shake your body around, walk, do it, get the blood flowing. So with that, we also want to talk about how you can, reach out for resources, reach out for help, because sometimes that is some of the most difficult things to do. So, Gian, would you like to take it away?
Absolutely. All right. So really, it's important to just have someone to lean on. Now, what's that one song? Bill Withers. Lean on me when you're not strong,
and I'll be your friend. No one's gonna sing with us?
No, okay. But yeah, it's okay. It's really it's really important to just have someone to be there to listen to understand, to empathize with your problem, what's going on, because really it differs for all of us. differs, our family life differs, our situation differs, and and that's the case for every community college students. So right now we're going to go over the impact in our community. So are we just going to? So the impact in our communities, it really is has been really foregrounded throughout this pandemic a lot, especially when we tackle basic needs for our students. Like I probably said before, students shouldn't have to be able to worry about the food that they have to eat for the day, or the rent that they have to pay for the month, or for transportation, or for textbooks, or for mental health resources for that matter. So it's important really to be able to in place that in our campus, have it be an accessibility for students, have it just be there, because that's what students need. That's what students need at the very core of their education. And really it falls, the moral imperative or responsibility falls on all of us to make that difference, to be just that shoulder to lean on, to cry on, or to make that transformative change that we're looking for in our campuses. And I believe last year, I can't remember the bill, quite frankly. It's AB 775. Yeah, AB 775. Unfortunately, it did not go through the legislature, but you can count on it that we're gonna advocate for it back, because if we can fix financial aid, if we can have basic needs centers and coordinators on our campus, then why not? Why not can we have mental health resources for every single community college that there is? So that leads us to our next slide. Raise awareness and take action. As a leader, you really can do a lot to help out your fellow students. And I think, as we've discussed, as we are, as we were, intimate and recognizant of how we are feeling, it does start with us. Normalize mental health. Like, if you discussed mental health 20 years ago, you're probably given a frown or something, because it was considered as a weakness. But really, it's never a weakness. Mental health is part of our well-being as a person, as a human. And to normalize it, as it has been over the past couple of years, it's really fundamental to not only raising awareness, but in making sure that we're able to discuss mental health without having the fear of being labeled something. But because it should always be normalized, always has been, always should be. Number 2, reflect on yourself every day. It really is. Our journeys as students, it's a daily thing. We want to be able to evaluate ourselves, because we got to keep ourselves whole as student leaders before we can put ourselves to helping other students. Because we've all had, on a raise of hand, who's had a really rough burnout within the past year? Yeah. So everyone has, and to be able to reflect on what's happening in our lives. Do I need to take a step back? Do I need to talk to someone? Can I be there for them? How about my family, my friends? Because life really is precious. Time is precious, and if we can do that, then we can have that good circle, healthy and always whole every day. Number 3, check on other people in your lives. Tell them how much you love them. We can't stress this enough. To us, our friends are important. Our coworkers are very important. We hold them close. Family. Tomorrow's really not guaranteed. So, I want you to do, if after this session or right now, to text your family. Tell them how much you care about them. Tell them that they mean a lot to you. Tell them that you probably can't live without them. And find those little moments, if you can, every day, to check on others and say what you feel, because you never know what tomorrow may bring. And And number 4, be a difference maker in your campus. And we've been already doing that day by day. We're the difference makers. We're the bringers of change, and it's just important to realize the gravity of that. The student leader part. It can be overwhelming to say that we have so much to do, that we're always on an uphill battle. We always need to engage students, but also that's also the beauty of it. We have every day, as a gift to take on that challenge, take on that opportunity to reach out, take on that moment to spark a conversation in class, and that will later turn on to many hundreds of other conversations that will lead to the change that we want to be in our campuses. So any final thoughts or questions and we'll take it from anyone from the chat.
I just want to say, Natalie, do you see any questions in the chat? There's one question. Okay, wait.
Okay, there's one question from Heather. She's wondering how many student parents are in the house. Anyone in this room? It's a very small room, Heather.
Is there anyone in the chat? Is the question too. I can just repeat it, yeah. So what I heard was, how do you reset and realign yourself? Could you repeat that one more time? All right, so the question once more was, how do you reset and realign yourself as student leaders with pretty much little free time? Anyone of my co-hosts want to take this one?
Take a stab at it. That's a really good question, and that's a question I often get asked a lot of the times, and I would also like to state for the record, I am not the most qualified to answer this question, but again, this is what I have found works best for me. And it's something that Angie actually brought up, is saying no, setting your boundaries, and I hate saying no to people. I really do. There is something I have, and take this with a grain of salt, everyone. I hate saying no, maybe because it's this like unknown superior martyr God complex that I have, and I want to serve and best effectively help people, right? There's something about helping people. It's in my blood. It's in my nature. My family are literally helpers themselves. So for me, it's really crucial to block out a day that is just dedicated to me. No emails, no calls, no electronics, no nothing. It's literally a day dedicated to me. I can't express that enough. And sometimes it's hard to find that time. And as student leaders, we don't get a whole lot of that time. Let's be frank. We wish we had more hours in a day. And if you can't find it, that's completely understandable. But recognize and realize that even just a minute, 15 minutes, or a whole day makes such a big difference, because it's so important to put yourself first and set aside that time for yourself. I know we all have different mechanisms for realigning and resetting. Mine just happens to be that I don't work on Sundays. I actually block out my Sundays, and I tell people in advance, don't ask me anything on a Sunday, because I'm not here. I'm not present unless it's an emergency. But it really depends on you as an individual. What are you going to find best that works for you? Is it taking 15 minutes to just sleep in, and a day to just do skincare? Totally down for that, though, if anybody would be down to do that, because I'd love to know some skincare secrets. But I can't emphasize the importance of saying no and setting those boundaries. They really do help, and they will help you realign and reset as a student, because again, there's a lot that we do, and saying no does not hurt anybody. Please let that sink in. Saying no hurts nobody, because it's you picking you, and that's the hardest thing we can do as individuals, and also even protecting your time. There's only so much time that you have as a whole. I believe Gian said it best. There's only so much time that we have on this place, on this earth, and we got to make the most of it, and that includes putting yourself first a lot of those times. So I hope that answered your question, and if not, I'd be more than happy to talk offline so that we can have an honest conversation too about how we can best serve ourselves in addition to so many other people.
just to quickly add on to that last question, sometimes say, not question, but answer, like sometimes saying, and this is something I actually took from Acting Chancellor Dr. Daisy Gonzalez's speech earlier. Sometimes I feel like saying no, also, especially in student leadership, sometimes that leads to you delegating projects to other members in your SBA, and that can help create the new generation of leaders. So you're allowing, sometimes when you say no to a certain, like let's say someone wants you to be on a panel, someone wants you to serve on a certain committee, like you may want it so bad. But sometimes, you know, especially for me, I was my SBA president for 2 years. And so in that second year, I had to start learning how to kind of, how do you say, like, I don't want to say step away, but, you know, step back. Like, I'm taking space, but I also need to make space. So some of my no's kind of became like that. My ability to kind of let the next generation of SBA leaders I go to City College of San Francisco. I feel like that was my way of also allowing the next generation to kind of learn what our campus community needs. Learn the ropes of what it means to kind of be, you know, SBA president or, you know, an executive in my SBA. So I just kind of wanted to add that little bit. Yes, Natalie.
So if I understood the question correctly, the question is asking what resources can be offered to certain communities, such as our veterans, our trans community, and so many others. And what is the SSCCC doing to assist in those efforts as they're being made? Am I understanding that correctly? Cool. So out of our presenters, who wants to tackle that question on first? That's a mouthful. That's a handful.
I could take on it. So I thank you for that question. I think that's a really good question. I think that, you know, DEI, diverse, like dissecting those three words: diversity, equity, inclusion. And you know that I'm heading that committee myself. So you know you have our commitment that we will be advocating for it. You know, whether it be legislatively, whether it is leading conversations throughout our campuses. And really, you know, that's what equity has always been about. It's not just recognizing our similarities and differences and treating each other equally. It's more than that. It's going through every single person on campus and saying, you know, like, what barriers do we need to remove that are preventing students to be able to reach their academic and their personal goals because they're, you know, if they are in a certain group. And I think that will be how we're gonna really do it. You know, what in like next month we'll be we'll be tackling the intersections of you know the timeless structure of racism, you know, in our society, how that has brought forth a lot of inequities, you know. And last year it was you know, Black Lives Matter through the killing of George Floyd, anti-Asian hate in May when we saw the vicious of just violence upon the Asian community. And, you know, currently now it's, you know, the issues at hand, student athletes, how do we make sure that they're able to continue playing sports throughout this pandemic? How do we accommodate for that? Our veterans who, you know, put themselves on the line, have that ultimate form of sacrifice, that last measure of devotion, and make sure, how do we make sure that every single person out there is heard, and not just symbolically, but also, you know, really involved in our discussions? And how do we do that in the SSCCC? That's through our participatory governance committees. Like we mentioned earlier in the state of the SSCCC, we want to make sure that every single person has has a place in every meeting, every conversation going on around our system. And with that, realizing it's not only going to happen on the state level, it has to be in our campuses. It really starts at the core, at the core of our student life. Where do our students look upon? At the core of our classrooms, teachers who actually lead that change too, because we need them to reflect the change that we want, not just students. We want everyone to be on board DEI, and I know it's a difficult battle, but as long as each of us will continue to commit to DEI work, to commit to this transformational change, then why not? Why can't we fight for everyone, for all students? So to answer your question, yes, we will tackle that either as a legislative priority to tackle that issue, and we will further keep engaging the necessary, important conversations in our campuses.
Thank you, Gian. So I just wanted to let everyone know we'll field about 2 more questions because we are reaching time very shortly. So Natalie, are there any further questions in the chat? Or does anyone in the room have a question as well? All right. I'll take that as a good sign. Thank you all for showing up. I wanted to say thank you to everyone here in person. I think the last time I saw on Zoom, there was about 25 of you. You all are rock stars. So if anything, you all are the heroes. Each and every one of you here. Each of every one of you on Zoom, not only, in your own personal lives, on your campuses, in your communities. You are a rock star, a hero. So never forget that. And I hope, you can take away a lot from this presentation. And if you could skip to the next slide, Gian. Connect with us. Stay in touch. So just a kind of final point on what Gian said. A lot of what I'm doing with the Instagram, and I'm going to be working with a lot of our communications officers. I think we have Sydney. Sydney. We have Sydney Pike. Shout out to Comms Region 8. What I hope we are going to do in the next few months, for the rest of the term, is not only provide ways for you to get involved with the SSCCC, we want to also look at how we can make each of our regional accounts, our main SSCCC account, more holistic. So less of what we want of you. Oftentimes you see a lot of ways to get involved. Those are still super, super important. We also want to give you resources on how to get involved on your campuses. I think the topic we discussed today are a few, areas we are looking at exploring in the next few months. And the communications committee and the board and the executive committee, thank you. So connect with us. We have a Facebook page. If you type in Student Senate for California Community Colleges, it'll lead you there. I don't know who still uses Facebook. I'm just kidding. I still use it, so. Instagram, you can you can find us at SSCCC_official. I'd like to, highlight that we are actually going to be having a few LGBTQ History Month panels on IG. So stay tuned. We have Twitter. Goes by the same handle, SSCCC_official. And finally, you can find so much more about our organization, how to get involved, events such as this on our website, SSCCC.org. Thank you for coming.